On the other side, the man bowed and left the Duke's office. "I take my leave now." Alon remained puzzled. Loria had once been threatened with death, yet now she had become the Duke, and now this. Something about it seemed off. Evan beside him tilted his head curiously, sensing the strangeness of the situation. Time shifted to a few months later. In winter, 5 years before the rules began. Alon was walking when someone called out, "Young Master." Evan ran over, inquiring, "Young Master no, now you are a count, right?" Alon replied, "Not yet at the succession ceremony, but the new year has arrived, so I can use the title." Inside, Alon felt a wave of indifference. His grand life plan had never included becoming a count. The wonderful rules of Seisidel: conquer Rodamil, avoid succession struggles, travel freely. None of that involved this. Yet he did not dwell on it. This was now familiar, and he could enjoy the full benefits of nobility. Warabel was even better than he had expected. Evan handed him a letter. "This is from Yusha." As he entered his room, Alon asked, "By the way, any information on the Leo assassins yet?" Evan responded, "Nothing clear yet. The Intelligence Bureau is investigating thoroughly. We will have to wait and see." They then sat at the table, and Evan spoke up, "So, what is your goal, sir? Surely it is not revenge." He silently pondered, "Perhaps the things gradually changing from the game are the butterfly effects caused by me." Alon spoke, "It is just to be prepared for any unexpected situations." Evan suddenly burst out laughing in admiration. "Just now, sir, you really looked like a proper count." Alon sighed. "Let us just say so." Alon then turned his gaze to the letter, curiosity flickering. "I wonder what it contains this time." The contents of the letter appeared. "Sir, how are you? We are all well as usual. Everyone is deeply engrossed in their hobbies. Especially Deuce the puppet play has now reached a truly impressive level." The others were equally cheerful. Seoling is still completely absorbed in gaming with friends. Then it mentioned the other members. Ryan has quietly been reading books but frequently produces new creations. Raiden has taken a keen interest in landscaping and decoration. After reading the letter, Alon smiled gently. The everyday life at the orphanage, where monthly letters had become routine, warmed his heart more and more. Though he had never seen their faces, watching the children grow thanks to his support naturally brought a smile to his lips, a father's smile. He suddenly spoke to Evan. "By the way, the 5, no, the children, how old are they now?" Evan looked curious. "Sir, why do you ask?" He continued, "It is almost time for them to step into society. Some have already left the orphanage early. Most of the children you personally ordered to be brought back are now at that age." Hearing this, Alan's image of their innocence seemed to shatter slightly in his mind. He recalled the moment when the children had said, "Thank you, sir, for raising us. The 5 send their regards." Alon immediately thought, yes. It is about time they start living independently. Evan asked again, "Really, were not you intentionally gathering these weak children?" Alon answered calmly, "There is no reason for that. They have grown up. They need to think about their future." But his inner thoughts were different. They were raised so they would not awaken to evil. Now they can take care of themselves. Evan sighed in relief. "It seems they are all healthy now." "I see." Alon began to think more deeply. During each bot battle, the narration had revealed glimpses of their abilities. Yusha possessed talent and faith. The gloomy boy, Deus, had talent and swordsmanship. Ryan showed aptitude for research. The young beast girl, Seoling, was gifted in combat. Raiden had talent as a disciple or envoy. Alon suddenly lifted a box, considering, if I arrange them in the right positions, won't they be capable of occupying their rightful roles? Thinking of those kids, Alon speculated quietly to himself, since I am doing this anyway, giving each of them a gift should make them happy. After all, I promised them I would someday. Time passed, gradually shifting into the late afternoon. The golden glow of the sunset bathed the manor in warm light. Alon leaned back in his chair at the desk, stretching, and thought, all done. Evan, still with a bit of drool on his lips, ran off, calling out, "Well, I will be going now." Alon watched him go, silently pondering, if everything goes smoothly from now on, will I even get a small share of the benefits? Above them, The sky was peaceful, filled with the gentle flight of small birds. "Take this letter, children, and step into the wider world," Alan's thoughts seemed to whisper to them. The scene shifted to the children themselves, recipients of Alan's message. His words had transformed into a clear command. Yusha, her usually cold expression flushed faintly red, muttered, "The instructions have arrived. This time, it is special, it is addressed to each of us individually." Now, all five held their letters in their hands. Deus remained composed, his face calm and unreadable as he examined his letter. Xiaoling bounced up and down with uncontainable excitement at the sight of hers. They no longer carried the fragile, small child demeanor of the past. Ryan gave a soft, gentle smile, while Raiden remained silent, stoic as ever. Yusha lowered her gaze, staring intently at her letter, her expression betraying little emotion, revealing nothing of what she truly felt. Inside the room, everyone had gathered together, each of them focused on the sheet of paper in their hands. The order had arrived. But this time, it had been sent separately to each one of them. Solong suddenly lifted her letter and jumped with excitement. Hooray! Raiden and Ryan held their sheets quietly, their expressions thoughtful and unreadable. Holding several letters in her hands, Yusha spoke calmly. "But before we do anything, we should read through the previous letters. His orders require a very high level of understanding." Solong grew even more excited. "We actually get to read them. Before this, only you were able to read them, Yusha." Yusha remained composed, her voice steady and plain. "If he sent individual orders to each of us, it means he has decided it is time for everyone to read them." She unfolded the letter. Yusha began reading aloud. "How have you been lately? It seems you have made many talented friends. If you ever need anything, just let me know." Solong squinted at the letter, scratching her cheek in confusion. "This is an order." Ryan read for a while as well, her brows knitting. "It feels more like everyday small talk than anything important." Hearing that, Yusha let out a quiet, sharp laugh. "Exactly. He disguised the orders as casual conversations from the very beginning." "All right, watch." She began analyzing the letter so the others could follow. "This is the first order after the greeting. It says, 'Yusha, how are you? I am doing fine. My older brother used me as a chair today. Funny, is not it? Sometimes I feel like writing to you. Reply if you are comfortable with that. And as for the child I am sending this time." Yusha continued. "He designated the target to be eliminated, gave the mission, and told us to report back afterward." The letter continued as she read on. "Thank you for replying. I hope you can tell me what happens at the orphanage each month. I am entrusting that place to you. You will all be fine together." Yusha explained further, breaking down every hidden instruction for them. "This is where he entrusted Lam Wei to me, and as you can see, he personally chose each one of you." And here she pointed to several lines, guiding them through her reasoning. Everyone around her stared, eyes wide and mouths agape. Deus finally nodded in understanding. "I see now. It was to prevent information leaks. I remember my first order clearly." Yusha smiled faintly and continued, "Exactly. You must understand every nuance of his orders and complete the mission accordingly." Deus suddenly suggested, "Then would not it be better to meet him directly, or use a magical communication device?" Raiden agreed with him. He has a point. If the issue is information leaks, why use letters at all? Suddenly, Yusha's expression shifted. Her face darkened, and her eyes flashed with a cold, red light. "I hope you have not forgotten," she said firmly, "that all we need to do is obey the orders." Deus, witnessing Yusha's unwavering loyalty, was left speechless. It was a devotion so absolute it sent shivers down his spine. "I have not forgotten," he said. Solong suddenly lifted her paper high, shouting with excitement, "Then let us read the orders together." The room, illuminated brightly, became a circle of focused faces. Each person began reading the orders that had been sent individually. Deus read his own aloud. "He is telling me to go to Caliburn, the Kingdom of Knights." Solong groaned, clearly disappointed. "A colony, but I do not like deserts." Raiden chimed in next. "I am assigned to Roxas, the entertainment city." Ryan had been sent elsewhere. "He is telling me to go to Larthania, the maze city," she explained. Yusha's eyes suddenly became mesmerizing. She clutched her letter with a look of rapture. The holy nation. Rosario. Everything that needs to be done is written in the letters, is not it? Deus held his letter, speaking with a detached tone. I do not know why, but he is telling me to become a knight. Solang's face lit up with excitement. And he said not to worry, the support will continue as before. Rind smiled gently. He has even shown us the locations of the gifts. Raiden, clearly pleased, added, no matter what they are, we will find out when we get there. Seeing that everyone understood the orders, Yusha reminded them seriously, good. But remember, unless he says otherwise, under no circumstances should you mention the name Lam Wei. Her gaze grew icy, piercing each of them with cold precision. The group quickly followed the instructions, moving purposefully to different destinations. They draped themselves in black cloaks and departed from the mansion. 3 months later, in a room stacked high with books and documents, Alon sat reading. As expected, there was nothing about changes in magic or the incantations. I will have to experiment on my own, he muttered. He then turned to Evan. By the way, how's the investigation into the person who killed Leo going? Evan replied, the Intelligence Guild says they have not found anything yet. Alon frowned slightly. I see. That is disappointing. He rested his chin on his hand, deep in thought. It seems the butterfly effect has already gone beyond my control. The result of saving the 5 great sins, after all. Alon recalled the image of the cold, calculating Duchess Loria. Even Loria herself, someone who was supposed to die in the original storyline, had become the Duke of Ultia, expanding her power and influence at an astonishing speed within the underworld. The more he thought about it, the darker his expression grew. He set the book down and ordered Evan, stop the investigation into the assassin. Evan was momentarily taken aback. Huh? Really? Alon silently calculated in his mind. This was clearly one of those situations where ignorance was bliss. In the original setup, almost nothing could escape the Intelligence Guild's network. The more he thought about digging into things he should not, the more fear gripped him. His face suddenly turned pale. The result would only be that if preparing for unexpected situations led to death, it would all be meaningless. To protect himself, Alon realized he had no other choice. Secret organizations like these would not harm him as long as he did not interfere with their affairs. There was no reason for them to attack unless he approached them first. He spoke to Evan. At this rate, continuing the investigation won't be of any use. Though he did not explain his reasoning, Evan agreed. All right, I will make sure they stop the investigation. Suddenly, Evan remembered a piece of news and hurriedly told Alon. By the way, there is another thing. It seems Deus was recently knighted in Caliburn. Alan's expression remained neutral, but he spoke out of courtesy. Really? Congratulations to him, then. 3 months later, Evan came rushing to Alon, carrying a pile of food. Alon whispered to himself, admiring Evan's versatility. Truly talented. At the same time, Evan reported, by the way, Deus has even formed an entire team of knights. Alon was astonished. What, then he must have reached at least the expert level, if not higher. He recalled the ranks of knights in this world: master swordsman, sword expert, swordsman. The more he thought about it, the more impressed he became. It had not been long since Deus had received his initial knighthood. Evan added, people are saying that the world might witness the 5th Great Knight in less than 10 years. Alon suddenly realized what Great Knight meant, those called the Swords of Caliburn. Evan confirmed, yes, he is truly talented. A small sense of pride washed over Alon. I am genuinely proud of him. Evan, chewing as he spoke, added, Caliburn must be buzzing with excitement over this news. 6 months later, in a grand, magnificent castle, Alon was engrossed in his work. A year had passed since the 5 great sins left the orphanage. As he was gradually settling into his duties as a duke, Evan entered with news. Your Grace, I have just heard some very recent news. Alon continued working without looking up. Evan went on, it seems that Deus has become a sword of Caliburn. The news hit Alon like a lightning strike, causing him to drop the pen in his hand. Even more astonishingly, Deus had become the 5th Great Knight. Alon found the news hard to believe. He quickly asked, but only a master swordsman can become a great knight, right? Alon recalled everything he knew about becoming a knight in this world. The swordmaster of psychedelia was a superhuman who had transcended even the art of swordsmanship itself, unlocking a unique ability known as Deen Sin. Alon turned to Evan, seeking clarification. Wait. Are you saying Deus is already a swordmaster? Evan corrected him gently. Not exactly. He is on the verge of becoming one. He has not yet manifested his own Deen Sin. Evan went on to recount Deus's rise to knighthood. Regardless, the nation had already conferred upon him the title of Great Knight, not just because he had won a duel against the Fourth Sword, but also because Caliburn had lost one of its great knights to the northern barbarians. Hearing this, Alon suddenly realized, right. They have been at war for over a decade. He scratched his head, and even Evan seemed a bit incredulous. Mastering and manipulating magical energy takes 15 years, and the process of Deen Sin requires at least several decades. Alon reflected on the history of the empire. Reinhardt, the first sword, had been 32 when he became the youngest great knight in recorded history. The chronicles recounted how this legendary hero had begun wielding a sword at the age of 5, ultimately earning the title of swordmaster at a young age. Alon thought to himself, indeed, Reinhardt's strength is unbelievable. Even with his talent, it took over 20 years. And yet, a child with no formal knowledge of swordsmanship has already become a great knight. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Wait. If he is only waiting to awaken his Deen Sin, could it be that he will soon surpass Reinhardt and achieve swordmaster status? The thought brought Alon an uncontainable sense of delight. He even voiced it aloud. Perhaps I can leverage his abilities sooner than expected. Evan nodded in agreement. Alon gazed at the scattered books and papers on his desk, falling into deep contemplation. Or maybe not. Perhaps that is impossible. Evan quickly waved his hand, reassuring him. No, he would not do that. Alon revealed a simple truth. He retrieved the lone letter tucked inside one of the books. I have only ever received letters from Yusha. He read aloud from Yusha's letter. Even after arriving at the Holy Kingdom, she had continued to send letters regularly, all containing updates on the 5 great sins she had grown up with. It seemed they had maintained their connection, keeping each other informed of their lives despite the distance. Alon felt a pang of loss in his heart. Even though they had never seen his face before, at the very least they should have thanked him for the gift. A small sense of guilt lingered within him. He slapped his own face sharply, as if to regain composure. Evan watched the gesture with a mixture of shock and awe. Let us get back to the main point, he said. I am already deeply grateful. They did not destroy the kingdom after awakening as the 5 great sins. The two of them stood shoulder to shoulder by the sunlit window. Alon spoke in a voice tinged with reluctant warmth. As long as they live well, that is enough for me to feel happy. Evening had fallen over the capital of Caliburn, in the central district of Kirtham, at the mansion of a high-ranking noble. The building served as the headquarters for the famed Sun Eclipse Cavalry, and inside countless knights were training rigorously. Deus, clad in armor, stood tall atop a platform, surveying the scene below. Introduced as Deus Macallion, he was the captain of the Sun Eclipse Cavalry and the youngest great knight. From above, his gaze swept over the knights beneath him, cold and unwavering. Suddenly, a young girl below noticed his presence. Her violet hair fluttering, she waved excitedly. Deus, big brother. Deus smiled and waved back. But his expression soon darkened. A wave of sadness passed through him as memories surfaced, though a full year had passed. Shame still lingered. He remembered the moment he had lost everything to those shadowy figures. The horrific images haunted his mind relentlessly. Painful memories of his childhood returned, leaving him with only an uncontrollable rage. The image of his sister, swallowed by darkness, slowly slipping away from his grasp, filled him with burning hatred. The shadows had separated him from her, and each step that widened the distance ignited his fury even more. His miserable, wandering childhood resurfaced vividly. Despite being immersed in suffering, he still held tightly to his sister's hairpin in his hand. Deus's true thoughts became clear. The fact that Dai Wei had saved his life was not reason enough for him to pledge loyalty. But because she promised he could exact revenge with his own hands, he had followed orders under the name Lam Wei. From that moment on, he had risked his life for Lam Wei, working under her as part of her organization, undergoing countless dangerous missions and rigorous training. Even when death loomed at every turn, Deus paid no heed. Revenge was all that mattered, and his own safety was irrelevant. Memories surged through his mind like a flood. Over the past few years, he had completed missions that would lay the foundation for combating the forces of darkness. And soon after, for the first time, he received a personal secret order. Deus was stunned. This was completely unexpected. What could it be? The letter revealed a small hotel in southern Caliburn. Alon had left a gift there and asked him to come see. Deus had initially paid little attention, uninterested in what the gift might be. Still, curiosity drew him to the location Alon had mentioned. Perhaps there was something there after all. When he opened the door, the sight inside left him utterly speechless. Within that unexpected letter's instructions, he saw a familiar figure, his sister. He rushed toward her, hand outstretched, longing to touch her. The gift from Dai Wei was not an object, but something far more precious, the family he had thought lost forever. Deus embraced her tightly, collapsing to the ground in overwhelming joy and emotion. The girl returned the embrace, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, what was more precious than life itself was reunited, and Deus wept silently, unable to contain his grief. The two reunited at last, clinging to each other in overwhelming relief. Deus could hardly believe what he was seeing. My sister, the girl he had mourned as dead, was standing here alive. It was only after their emotions gradually calmed that they gently pulled apart. His voice trembled as he asked, "Siley, what happened after I lost you?" She did not answer right away. Instead, Siley tightened her grip around his hand, as if reassuring him, while Deus used his free hand to softly wipe the lingering tears from the corner of his sister's eyes. Moments later, they went back inside the house and sat down at the table to continue talking. Siley held her cup tightly and began recounting everything in a slow, steady voice. After those men dragged her away, she was left waiting in darkness for her turn, waiting for what felt like an eternity. She had been imprisoned in a cold, lightless dungeon. All around her were countless other cells packed with captives who huddled together in suffocating silence, consumed by hopelessness. She did not know how much time had passed. And when her turn to die finally came, she was the last one left alive. The walls and floor were littered with blood-soaked corpses. Overwhelmed by pure despair, Siley remembered screaming with everything she had. Then, the clasp on her cloak snapped open. A burst of light cut through the darkness, and someone grabbed her hand. She escaped, pulled out of that nightmare by that mysterious light. Years later, however, when she was nearly sold to a slave trader, despair once again closed in. A massive hand clamped around her body, making escape impossible. But at that very moment, streaks of light from a sword tore through the air. A figure burst in, swinging his blade and severing that monstrous hand into pieces. Siley remembered clearly the man who stepped in front of her like a shield was a mercenary named Evan, and he had saved her life. She stood up and opened a small cabinet. After that, I received a rare medicine from my benefactor. She took out a letter, the handwriting neat and authoritative. It carried a message from Alon Palacio. "I will continue sending medicine and support. You will be safe under the name of Palacio. And do not worry about your brother." Siley's voice softened with gratitude. She was truly thankful for everything he had done for her. Hearing this, Deus was stunned. "He used his own name to protect you. But how would the Grand Moon even know about this?" He quietly folded his arms, suspicion clouding his mind. "I never told anyone about my family. Yusha only deduced that the black sheep were the ones who captured her." "So how?" Suddenly, Deus remembered something Yusha had once said, "He knows everything." At that instant, something inside him clicked. Pieces that once felt scattered began to link together, forming a complete image, one that dissolved all the lingering questions he had been struggling with. Back then, he had not been able to understand Yusha's unease. She had said something strange, "A sword can't think on its own, right?" A remark he had shrugged off at the time. Only now did Deus finally grasp what she meant. And yet, the real fool had been him all along. "Good things will come," Alon had once told him. Deus grew pensive. Thinking back on it now, Alon had known everything. He had known the entire situation and hinted that the child would have to survive on his own. A quiet chill crawled down Deus's spine. Seeing him sit there, lost in thought, Siley tilted her head. "Brother." He snapped out of it and gently patted her head, though his mind continued to wander. His sword dared to act on its own. Yet Alon had still chosen to be generous, compassionate. And all this time, Deus had believed he was being controlled. Meanwhile, he had done nothing but cling to his hatred and his thirst for revenge against the black sheep. He sat down at the table as Siley brought over a tray of warm food. Looking at the bright smile on his sister's face, Deus suddenly realized just how precious his family's survival truly was, a gift beyond measure. Yusha's cold voice drifted back into his memory. "You will understand soon enough why I chose to follow that man." He finally understood. She was not some blind zealot, nor did she trust Alon out of simple fanatic devotion. And that letter, its message urging him to go to Caliburn and become a knight, now made perfect sense. He whispered to himself, "I have to repay him. That is my mission. To become the one who stands at the top of Caliburn, the Grand Knight, and to form a knightly order of his own, gathering the finest swordsmen under one banner." That conviction burned inside him like sunlight breaking through a world drowned in darkness. Breaking free from his reverie, Deus turned as one of his subordinates stepped forward to report, "Captain, it is time." He climbed up onto the high platform. Below him, rows of knights stood in perfect formation, each one poised and resolute. Under the moonlight, their features appeared sharp, their eyes unwavering. Deus told himself, "This expedition will be the first step toward eclipse. I do not care what hardships come." He brushed his hand over the sheath of the violet sword at his side, the moonlight glinting against its metallic surface. Then, under that pale glow, Deus drew his blade, expression cold and regal. "I will wait for the day I can offer him my gratitude along with a repayment worthy of his trust. I will prove it under the moonlight." On a day when snow fell thick across the sky, the Eclipse Order set out on their campaign against the barbarian clans. Meanwhile, at the Count's manor, Alon leaned against the wall with a sigh. "So peaceful. Maybe it is because all my kids have grown up." A sudden gust of wind blew through the room, scattering papers and flipping the open book before him. "Ah no, no, they are all flying away." He hurried after them, catching what loose pages he could. Once the chaos settled, Alon returned to his work. Let us see. Let us see. After returning from the labyrinth, he had been focusing on studying the keyword. He was in the middle of writing when he suddenly paused. "Why am I writing in cursive? From now on, I should stick to proper handwriting." Alon gave a satisfied nod. Good, his reports were finally complete. On the pages before him, he focused on analyzing the keywords, each carrying a different type of transformation. He circled the word shrink, noting how it reinforced inherent flaws within completed spells, causing their area of effect to expand uncontrollably. More specifically, shrink enhanced the instability inside every finished incantation, widening the spell's spread. Beyond that, it had another function, disrupting form and altering the shape of the released projectile. Shift, imbalance, transformation. Every test confirmed the same conclusion. Once activated, it forced the projectile to recoil or rupture, interfering with its intended structure. For blue light, he wrote that it reinforced parallel magic such as lightning spells which would curl inward, gathering into a large swirling orb that discharged arcs of crackling electricity. Meanwhile, the diffraction line carried two major effects, penetration and critical strike. It granted a spell the ability to pierce through its target, which naturally translated to a devastating critical hit, dramatically increasing lethality. More importantly, in the rules of keyword casting, any violation would result in immediate spell failure. There were additional warnings as well: never use an incompatible keyword, never repeat the same word, and never exceed 4 keywords in one incantation. Alon scratched his head with his pen. With his current mana core, he could only cast one spell a day, which meant it had taken him an absurd amount of time to test and confirm all of this. He recalled the days he spent searching for answers. In the world's current setting, Babylonian hand signs and keywords had long been forgotten, completely erased from history. Not a single record existed explaining where they originated. Alon had devoured every book he could find, but none offered the slightest clue. In the end, he had been forced to research everything on his own, and to his surprise, it had turned out to be Genuinely interesting, even though he only practiced basic defensive magic. He stood up and walked to the empty patch of ground in the garden. Raising a hand, he fired several thin bolts of lightning into the air. Alright, time to see the results of 2 whole months of experimentation. With one hand, he lifted the index finger of the other. From that finger, even more sparks began to gather, spreading outward through the air. They curled slowly, spiraling until they condensed into a single point in the sky. Alon focused, stripping away the orb's point of equilibrium and triggering imbalance to activate the lightning. This weak, nearly useless spell was called fixation. Within moments, a swirling orb materialized above, rotating violently. Alon murmured the next keyword compress and the large sphere shrank dramatically, though its power remained potent. He continued applying everything he had learned, chanting another keyword. Break. The orb's nature shifted, brewing toward a specific purpose. Blossoms of blue. The lightning around his hand began to change color, turning into a vibrant azure glow. The magic grew fiercer. What began as a simple orb now unfurled like a massive trunk, with surging branches of lightning spreading outward. Seeing the result before him, he could not help but marvel. So the order mattered this much, Alon muttered to himself. After all, when he used break first, the spell collapsed instantly. Before he could finish the thought, a voice suddenly screamed, cutting clean through his concentration. No way, impossible. Startled, Alon spun around. 2 figures had appeared behind him without him noticing. Kalia stood pale and shaken, her expression twisted with disbelief. Origin magic. She whispered. Alon stared at her in surprise. What, Kalia, why are you here? The person standing beside her was trembling. To use origin magic. That means he has already reached the rank of a 7th circle mage. Hearing that, Alan's mouth twitched slightly. Origin, me. In the guest lounge of the Palacio estate, Kalia and Vionkel sat in silence, waiting for Alon. Even as she waited, Kalia could not help feeling tense. Her mind kept circling around the 2 reasons she had come here. First, she needed to confirm the intentions of Count Palacio, the man holding a trump card capable of inflicting devastating damage on Zenonia. After all, Kalia was now effectively the one running Zenonia. Her father was merely a puppet whose strings she controlled. Determining Alan's true motives had become her top priority. Second, she wanted to gauge the level of the organization protecting him, the mysterious group that had helped him manipulate Palacio. This second reason was not as critical, but Kalia was genuinely curious about which hidden faction had brought Alon to where he stood today. Yet instead of answers, she had learned something she never expected. She had never once imagined she would witness this arrogant mage shaking in fear. And yes, right now, Vionkel, sitting beside her, was trembling so hard he could barely remain seated. Vionkel, a 5th circle mage expelled from the magic tower for his inhumane experiments, was someone who could easily wipe out an entire battalion. He had always treated her with a touch of arrogance, even though she had been his longtime patron. A brilliant mind, cold-blooded, ruthlessly efficient, such a man should have been unshakable. Yet here he was, shivering uncontrollably, his complexion ashen, sweat dripping down his face. Kalia stared at him, hardly believing what she was seeing. I can feel his fear, she thought. I have never seen him like this. And still, a question gnawed at her, was that truly origin magic just now? Before she could delve deeper, the door opened, and a low voice broke through her thoughts. Then, with that single word, Alon stepped calmly into the room. He stopped in front of Kalia and Vionkel, his tone cool as he asked, "What brings you into my domain?" Kalia straightened her posture, answering with careful politeness. "My apologies for visiting so suddenly. I wished to meet you so greatly that..." Before she could finish, Alon cut in with courteous restraint. "I won't hold it against you, Lady of Zenonia." Then he folded his arms, regarding her with a serious, steady expression. His voice remained mild, but the certainty in it was unmistakable. "However, allow me to clarify something. What I used earlier was not origin magic. If you truly wish to categorize my magical ability," he continued bluntly, "I am only at the level of a 2nd circle mage." He hid nothing, addressing the heart of the matter directly. After a brief pause, he shifted his gaze to Vionkel. The mage beside you should have noticed already the spell I used carries no actual combat effect. But inwardly, Alon let out a quiet sigh of disappointment. What a shame. That magic can't be used offensively or defensively at all. Hearing his words, both Kalia and Vionkel arrived at the same stunned conclusion. He means. Sensing something in Alan's demeanor, Vionkel's expression darkened. He immediately sent a whispered transmission to Kalia, warning her to keep her mouth shut about what she had just witnessed. Hearing that, Kalia stiffened in tension. Vionkel, still trembling, bowed his head and stammered out a sincere apology. Why, you are right, sir. It seems. I must have misjudged what I saw. Kalia turned to him in confusion, unable to understand. Vionkel. Being polite, she had never seen the man behave like this. Alon gave a faint nod, letting the matter drop. Hearing Vionkel concede so quickly, he finally felt the weight lift off his shoulders. He did not push them any further and said plainly, "Good. Now that the misunderstanding is settled, let us move on to the main reason you are here." Kalia hesitated for quite a while before responding with careful tact. "I thought it would be proper to visit after finishing my business." Alon looked at her with mild indifference. "So you truly have no particular reason for coming?" Kalia lied to herself as much as to him. "No." Alon lowered his gaze, sounding tired as he spoke with a vague implication. "A shame. I have matters to attend to, so I can't stay long." Being a sharp woman, Kalia rose to her feet immediately. With polite composure, she said, "I understand. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. We will take our leave now." Leaning back in his chair, Alon spoke in a cold, half-joking, half-serious tone. "If you are in need of someone to talk to, I suggest you visit Duchess Ultia. I think the two of you would get along well." He fixed his gaze directly on her as he said it. Kalia's expression paled slightly. She understood all too well his words were not casual. After a few seconds of silence, she bowed in acknowledgement. "If you say so, then I will visit her." Alon and Evan escorted them to the door. Only after the luxurious carriage left the estate did Evan finally ask, puzzled, why would someone from the Zenonia family, a declining clan from the western region, come all the way here? Alon answered honestly, "I do not know. I can't even imagine a reason." But deep down, he already understood. This is going to cause trouble. If the false rumor of him using origin magic spread, those hungry to challenge the strong would eventually come seeking him out. After all, this world is a dark fantasy setting. Even as he thought about it, he could already picture all the sinister factions turning their attention toward him. As he walked back inside, Alon prayed silently, let her get the hint. Zenonia would never visit Ultia. Ultia is a major player in the underground world. Still, he hoped for at least one thing: as long as they do not come looking for me, I am fine. The sky was clear as the carriage rolled down the road toward home. Inside, Kalia's voice drifted faintly from the window. That magic Count Palacio used. Was it truly origin magic? She sat upright, waiting for Vionkel's response. Vionkel, still pale and unsettled, answered haltingly, "No. It was not." Kalia pressed on. "Then why did you react like that?" The question struck him hard. Vionkel's body trembled again. He spoke gravely. "Origin magic is a type of sorcery that draws its own law upon the canvas of absolute, immutable principles. It belongs only to those who have reached the pinnacle of the magical arts. However, what the Count used was something else," Vionkel continued, his voice still trembling. "As you requested, I activated the Observer's Eye to examine his magic. He had done it secretly while Alon and Kalia were speaking, carrying out the task she assigned him. And what he saw had shaken him to the core. I truly witnessed a veil splitting apart, releasing a suffocating, ominous aura that wrapped around him." Vionkel's breath grew erratic. He was tearing through that veil. He was distorting the absolute, immutable principles themselves. The lightning, he fixed it in place. The more he spoke, the more unhinged he became. His voice cracked as he shouted. "The Observer's Eye let me see what the human mind is not meant to see." He bent it, he collapsed the very laws. And despite all that, the spell still manifested. He performed an impossibility. Kalia's face drained of color. Her eyes widened in horror as she stared at Vionkel, unable to process what she was hearing. But Vionkel did not stop. His voice dropped to a gravelly whisper. And what happened next? That is what truly matters. He swallowed hard. The cracking ice. And that crimson, shadow-drenched eye buried deep within Alon. His voice quivered. That was unmistakably the mark of the forgotten great deity. Just the memory was enough to make Vionkel collapse forward, clutching his head with trembling hands. His voice broke into panicked muttering. I must stop thinking about it. If I think any further, it will be dangerous. Very dangerous. Then, as if remembering something urgent, he jerked his head up and stared at Kalia, face pale and eyes wide with dread. When I was young, I dug deep into ancient lore, deep enough that my research into magic of the Lost Era was once praised among scholars. So listen well. His tone turned deathly serious. Do not oppose Count Palacio. Kalia knit her brows, her voice laced with bitter irony. So you mean someone as insignificant as me investigating his intentions is pointless? Vionkel knew full well that both Loria and Kalia were nothing more than pieces on Alan's game board, but he could not say that aloud. He simply gave a curt suggestion. I recommend you visit Duchess Ultia. He did not explain further, yet Kalia felt a vague chill run through her. She began to understand, however faintly. I have become one of his pieces. 5 months later, roughly 2 years since the children left the orphanage at Count Palacio's estate. The moment Evan opened the door to the office, Alon called out without looking up, "Hey, Evan." As Evan approached, Alon remained busy sorting through documents, speaking casually while working. Do you have any new information? If it is about the kids, that is even better. Evan hesitated. It is not about the children. He had just gotten to that point when Evan continued, but it seems the Zenonia territory and the Ultia Duchy have formed an alliance. The moment Alon heard that, it felt like a bolt of lightning struck straight through his skull. He froze and turned to Evan, disbelief tightening his voice. What? The two dominant forces of the entire underworld have formed an alliance? Evan nodded repeatedly, firmly confirming it. Because it is an underworld pact, outsiders naturally would not know. However, I am certain about this. Alan's mind was thrown into chaos. Great. I managed to push the center onto an entirely different path, only to end up facing an alliance between two hidden masterminds. Is the kingdom of Asteria really about to collapse? He paused, doubt stirring again. Wait. Did she actually take my words seriously back then? He recalled their last encounter. He was the one who suggested to Kalia, if you ever need someone to talk to, I recommend seeking out the Duchess of Ultia. Thinking about it now made him want to slam his head into the nearest wall. He shook off the spiraling thoughts and forced himself to calm down. No. It must be a temporary alliance at best. With Kalia's cold, prideful personality, she would never. Still. Alon hesitated, reconsidering. Even so, I should at least make some preparations. Once he decided, he immediately pulled out a sheet of paper. With genuine seriousness, he began writing a letter to Kalia. To Kalia. I apologize if I came across as too blunt or distant. It is simply because I am not very good with words. I hope this does not sound like an excuse. Sunlight streamed through the window as he wrote. When he finished, he handed the letter to Evan and waved him off. I am leaving this to you, Evan. Just before leaving the room, Evan promised, I will deliver it to Lady Kalia of the Zenonia territory through the Mercenary Guild. I will also keep an eye on the children. Alon was left alone in the room. He looked at the remaining letters in his hand, wondering to himself, I wonder how Raiden and Solrung are doing. I have not heard anything from them since Yusha wrote that they would arrive. Thinking of the mischievous Solrung, he could not help worrying. I hope that girl is not starving on the streets somewhere. And then he remembered the letter he had sent her. He reassured himself silently, if she finds the gift I mentioned in the letter, she will rise to the very peak of all warriors. Baba Yaga. From what he knew, the magic hand was the pride of the Golden Mane tribe. Once equipped, it granted a 70% increase in critical strike rate. If the arrogant sinner had obtained such an artifact, she would never have fallen. She would have become a mighty wolf beastkin warrior instead. At least, that is what the item description said. Alan's gaze drifted lazily toward the sky outside the window, but his mind was far from calm. I told that girl the location of the secret treasure I would set aside as my emergency fund. He thought uneasily. I mean, she is talented enough to earn her own living, so she should be fine. Right. That place was the homeland of warriors, a land where strength could grant one the world itself. A barren, sand-filled desert nation, colony. Beneath the star-studded night sky, deep within a rocky cavern, Solong skipped lightly along the uneven dirt path leading outside. The moment she stepped out, she stretched her arms high above her head, her voice bursting with pure joy. Finally. The trial is over. Looking down at the magic hand artifact now resting on her wrist, Solong broke into a smile so wide it practically split her face. "Oh great moon, thank you for this gift." Waving her arms around, she giggled to herself, muttering in disbelief. I always thought the Golden Mane tribe's essence was just a legend. But as it turned out, the stories her mother told her when she was a child were not fairy tales at all. Her invincible gaze drifted into the distance. Old memories resurfaced. Back when she was small, sitting beside her mother with her siblings gathered around, she had innocently asked, the essence of the Golden Mane tribe. Her mother had gently ruffled her hair, her voice soft and affectionate as she explained, yes. We, the Wolf tribe, are the descendants of the king of all beastkin, the Golden Mane tribe. The essence of the Golden Mane tribe was a legendary artifact passed down for hundreds of years. It granted its bearer strength and authority beyond compare. Obtaining it was no easy feat. Only those with true capability could claim this treasured relic. And now, having claimed that very essence herself, Solong had traveled through harsh lands to reach it. It had rested upon a dangerously high cliff ledge. When she finally slipped it onto her hand, an excruciating pain tore her body apart from the inside, a pain so intense she felt she died and resurrected over and over. After that came the trials of the inner realm. All equally merciless. To endure both ordeals and still stand with the artifact on her wrist now was undeniable proof. Solong had earned this treasure. More memories surged through her mind. She felt genuinely, deeply grateful. The Great Moon was her savior. It was the Great Moon who rescued her from the brink of death during the biological experiments at the most desperate moment of her life. Covered in scars across her skin and soul, ready to give up, she was saved. The Great Moon had given her the strength to take revenge on the Black Dragon, the beast that had slaughtered her parents. That was why Solong had absolutely sworn that she would repay this divine grace. As if sensing the fierce resolve blazing within her, the artifact on her hand began to glow, radiating a powerful surge of strength. She tested it, confidence swelling in her chest. There is no way the Great Moon wants me to become some ordinary fighter, she told herself. From now on. Solong paused, her eyes sparkling with a mystical light. Mana began flowing into her body, merging seamlessly with her veins. She made a silent oath, I must become the strongest warrior. I will revive the Golden Mane tribe by gathering the remaining members. And I will kill the Black Dragon with this. Lifting her hand high, the artifact gleaming against the night sky, Solong declared it her proof, her pledge of honor. The memories faded, and Solong found herself standing motionless in the middle of the colony desert at midnight. She looked up at the bright moon above her, a sight that reminded her so much of the Great Moon. Her voice drifted softly along the cool night breeze. All of this. It is for you. Let us begin, she said, breaking into a bright, carefree grin before bounding forward. In the still, quiet expanse of the night, the only sound was her steady footsteps advancing through the desolate colony. The scene felt like a prophecy that beneath the blue moonlight, after 500 long years, the great kings of the beastkin, the Golden Mane tribe, would rise again. Alon was deeply focused on the documents in his hands when Evan suddenly spoke up. Ah, right. While wiping down his sword, Evan said apologetically, the Intelligence Guild has obtained some information about the kids. I meant to tell you back at the training grounds, but I completely forgot. Alon did not get angry. He calmly looked up and replied, all right. What is it? Evan explained, Solrung is doing extremely well at the settlement. She has even earned herself a nickname, the Golden Flash. Alon frowned slightly. The Golden Flash. I feel like I have heard that name somewhere before. After a brief pause, he added, "Still, I am glad to hear she is doing fine." Evan nodded. "Yeah. In that land, as long as you have strength, you can do just about anything." Alon then asked, "What about Raiden? We have not heard anything from him since he said he was apprenticing in Roxas." Evan hesitated. "There is some information, but it is still being verified." Hearing that, Alon fell into thought. "I see. Oh, right, Evan." He shot Evan a suspicious look. Evan immediately broke out in a sweat. Why are you looking at me like that all of a sudden? I have done everything you told me to." "You need to start preparing," Alon said. "It will take at least a month to reach the magic tower." Evan jolted upright. "What, the magic tower? You never mentioned that." Alon rubbed his chin, surprised. "Did not I?" Evan let out a long sigh. "Well, I am used to it by now." Still confused, Evan added, "But a whole month? It only takes about a week to reach the 6th magic tower." Alon replied, "We are going to the blue magic tower." Evan nodded in understanding. "I see. That place is near the labyrinth city, no wonder it is so far." In the end, Evan stood up and left the room. "I will start preparing immediately." Alon gave a quiet nod in approval. Once Evan was gone, Alon leaned back in his chair and sighed. A whole month riding in a carriage. Just thinking about it is exhausting. Still, he had no choice. The item that could support his precious, underdeveloped mana core was there. With that thought, Alon propped his chin on his hand. Labyrinth City, huh? That brings back some memories. Back when he was playing the game, he would spend an absurd amount of time grinding levels there. He closed his eyes and reminisced. The labyrinth located at the very center of the city was a special grinding map in psychedelia. The deeper players went and the more they leveled up, the higher the quality of items they could obtain. However, despite countless players entering the labyrinth, not a single one had ever reached its end. Back then, Alon had to use cheats just to descend to the 150th floor. He still remembered cursing out loud. Are the developers insane? There is still more below that. Why even make more floors if no one can reach them, just to watch us suffer? Was there even anything good down there on floor 150? Even so, just like in the game, sacred relics and ancient artifacts were continually being discovered within the labyrinth. Because of that, the profession of certified magical appraisers became incredibly popular enough to guarantee wealth and comfort. Suddenly, Alon thought of Rhine. She had mentioned that she would soon take the appraiser certification exam. With her talent, she would surely pass without much trouble. Returning to reality, he suddenly felt a pang of guilt. Perhaps the gift he had given Rhine was far too modest compared to what others had received. After all, it only helped with equipment appraisal. If that gift was not enough, then maybe he should send her some separate financial support. On a star-filled night, in the labyrinth city of Larthania, a place ruled by no nation, stood a city belonging solely to adventurers and mercenaries. Within a narrow alley, past countless storefronts tucked away in a corner of the southern district, one could find a secret appraisal shop known as Merd. It was a discreet establishment, quietly famous for its unique services, catering primarily to nobles and rank adventurers. Among its clients was even the Lord of Larthania himself. Rhine spoke calmly, "The appraisal is complete, my lord." The man looked surprised as she lifted the item and explained, "This device uses mana to generate fire." The lord smiled in satisfaction. "Thank you, as always. Let me see." As he took the device into his hands, Rhine continued, "This is a relic capable of being inscribed." The lord's interest was immediately piqued. "And what does the inscription do?" With only a small amount of mana, she replied evenly, "It can sustain the flame for at least 1 hour." The lord burst into laughter, clearly impressed. "Its efficiency has improved tremendously." "Excellent." With the transaction complete, the lord departed. Just before stepping outside, he turned back as he always did. "My thanks, as always." From behind the counter, Rhine's gentle voice replied, "You are very welcome." Only after the shop had emptied did she reach up and remove her mask. Under the soft lamplight, Rhine's beautiful face was revealed, clear jade-green eyes tinged with faint exhaustion. She then turned her gaze toward another object resting on a shelf, one that resembled a pair of binoculars. Stepping closer, she picked it up and murmured, "This one can be inscribed as well." At that moment, it became clear why a shop hidden away in such an obscure corner had gained its reputation. Its true value lay in inscription. Carrying the item, Ryan opened the door to a private room and stepped inside. This was a gift from the great moon. Moonlight streamed in through the window, illuminating an object floating mid-air, glowing softly. Looking at it, she smiled faintly. When he first told me to become an appraiser, I could not understand why. Ryan recalled Alan's figure. His true body was a god who had once been a companion of Palin during the forgotten era of the Outer Gods. I understood that everything we would done so far was to eliminate the black objects, but